The county is reporting another death linked to the coronavirus. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Carlo Cicchetto.
And I'm Barbara Lee Edwards. This brings the total number of deaths in the county to 16. There are 117 newly reported cases of coronavirus in San Diego County today, with the total rising to 966. The county recommends that beginning Friday at midnight, anybody going out should wear some sort of facial covering. And there are now more than 1 million cases of coronavirus worldwide.
The captain of the USS Theodore Roosevelt is no longer at the helm of his ship. The Navy announced it is relieving Captain Brett Crozier of his command just days after a letter pleading for more supplies to fight a coronavirus outbreak on board. News 8's Brandon Lewis spoke with the mother of a sailor and explains what happens now. Brandon.
Carlo and Barbara Lee, tonight some 3,000 sailors who serve on the USS Theodore Roosevelt are now off the ship, awaiting for their test results to come back. More than 100 of them have confirmed tested positive for the virus. We spoke with the mother of one of those sailors who tells us she is praising the actions of the captain.
That was a completely unnecessary thing to do in the midst of a crisis.
Days after the commanding officer of the USS Theodore Roosevelt sent a letter pleading for help battling a coronavirus outbreak on board, the Navy relieved Captain Brett Crozier of his command.
It raised alarm bells unnecessarily. It also created the impression that the Navy was not responding to his questions. And as I mentioned, my chief of staff was in contact with him a day before he even sent that email.
The ship is currently in Guam, where the Navy says 114 sailors tested positive for the virus, all with mild to moderate symptoms. Among them is Chantilly's son. News 8 is not identifying him or using her last name because he is serving on a ship that is actively deployed.
I can just kind of hear the fear in his voice. Today he spoke very low, so I know he was sneaking on the phone.
Chantilly says her son is asymptomatic, but medical staff say he can spread the virus, so he, like others, are isolated at an on-base hotel. She says she's happy he's getting the care he needs and that the captain spoke out.
This child is my 5th pregnancy. I lost 4 babies before him. I don't want to lose my son. If, he's ever in town, he always has a warm home-cooked meal here.
But the Navy says her reaction is one they wanted to spare families and why they ultimately decided to relieve Crozier of his command, adding he never told them in multiple conversations, including one the day the letter was sent, that he needed more supplies.
To me, that's a phone call to Admiral Aquilino. It's a walk down the hallway to your commanding officer. It's not a blast out email to anybody who he knows.
Tonight, there are still about 1,000 sailors on board the USS Theodore Roosevelt. They will remain there for the duration, helping to run essential functions of the nuclear warship. Carlo and Barbara Lee.
All right, thanks, Brandon. Local law enforcement will begin cracking down on anyone who violates the stay-at-home order. During today's county media conference, Sheriff Bill Gore announced that agencies across the county will begin issuing citations to people who are not following the order. Those who violate it face up to a $1,000 fine and up to 6 months in jail. Also, as of midnight on Friday, the county will recommend anyone leaving the house for essential tasks wear a facial covering, something like a scarf or a bandana, but not a medical mask.
We are talking about a facial covering, not a medical mask. If you have a medical grade mask, we ask you to take that to a medical facility or to the County of San Diego so it can be deployed to our frontline healthcare workers.
As of midnight Saturday, essential workers like those at grocery stores, pharmacies, and gas stations must wear a face cover.
For the second straight week, a record number of Americans filed for unemployment. New numbers from the U.S. Department of Labor show 6.6 million Americans filed last week. That doubles the record set the week before, for a total of 10 million people out of work in just the past 2 weeks.
This is an absolutely insane number of people, and it sure does hurt to see these numbers because I don't think they're going to let up anytime soon.
Some help is on the way thanks to the government's $2 trillion economic stimulus package. The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis estimates about 47 million workers could lose their jobs as companies affected by the coronavirus pandemic continue to cut staff. The Treasury Department has updated its timeline on when Americans and small businesses will start receiving money as part of the massive Phase 3 stimulus bill. Meanwhile, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced a new congressional panel to scrutinize the execution of the measure. Skylar Henry reports from the White House.
With the stroke of his pen, President Trump signed into law the more than $2 trillion bill to tackle the health and economic fallout from the coronavirus pandemic.
I want to thank Republicans and Democrats for coming together, setting aside their differences, and putting America first.
The package gives up to $1,200 directly to most working Americans, expands unemployment insurance, provides hundreds of billions to businesses both big and small, and delivers immediate financial relief to hospitals.
I object on the basis that a quorum is not present.
Kentucky Republican Thomas Massie pressed for a recorded vote on the measure.
I came here this week to make sure our republic doesn't die in an empty chamber by unanimous consent.
But party leaders got the bill over the finish line with a voice vote.
The motion is adopted.
President Trump bashed Congressman Massey's objection on Twitter. He also used Twitter to call on General Motors and Ford to produce more ventilators.
I invoke the Defense Production Act to compel General Motors to accept, perform, and prioritize federal contracts for ventilators. We will not hesitate to use the full authority of the federal government.
Ford says it's pulling out all the stops, and GM says it's working around the clock to meet the urgent need. The president has ordered the Food and Drug Administration to reduce regulatory burdens to speed up the production of ventilators. He predicts the federal government will receive 100,000 additional ventilators over the next 100 days. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Oil's biggest one-day rally ever calmed investors worried about job losses in the energy sector. The markets ended the day on the upside, with the Dow closing up about 2%. The Nasdaq and S&P 500 also closed slightly higher.
Well, health is on the mind of most people right now. As far as crime goes, our communities are safer than they've been in a decade. Sandag announced that the region hit a 10-year low for arrests in 2018. The researchers say the juvenile arrest rate dropped 82% between 2009 and 2018, and the adult arrest rate is down about 40% in that time. But now that we're under the stay-at-home order, some experts say we could see a big jump when we look back at the 2020 data.
And as we all try to deal with this, there is no normal anymore. And I think that, are we going to see more substance use rates, mental health issues as we all try to cope with this, as well as domestic violence?
Both juvenile and adult arrest rates in the county during 2018 were lower than the state average.
Following the governor's order to shut down non-essential businesses, we've received several emails from viewers questioning why some people are still on the job. That includes construction workers, even though they are considered essential. Shannon Handy has more on the concerns and how industry officials are responding.
We're in Mission Beach, where road construction is underway. You'll also notice residential projects going on both here and throughout San Diego. And that's drawing a lot of criticism. But industry officials we spoke with say not only is this essential, but they're doing what they can to keep workers safe.
2 weeks following the closure of several non-essential businesses, construction crews are still hard at work. From big commercial projects to smaller residential ones.
I think it's a day-to-day thing. It could change.
Greg Cantor, president and CEO of Murray Lampert Design Rebuild Remodel, has experience with both. Deemed essential, none of his projects have been put on hold, but he and his staff are doing things differently.
2/3 of our staff is now working remote.
And most meetings are done online. On job sites, Cantor says workers are taking extra precautions.
Everybody's using gloves and wipes and making sure tools are clean.
Cantor has reached out to all of his clients who still want work to continue, in part because they like to move back into their homes.
We have people that are renting. They're out of their homes and they're paying a mortgage and rent. And so I think that's essential as long as everyone's safe.
Not everyone agrees. Several of our viewers have emailed us with concerns regarding a home build in Mission Beach. One wrote, "How does this not pose a health threat to our community?" And at UCSD, where a massive building project is underway, another viewer asked, "Can you please investigate why the construction at UCSD is considered essential?" Governor Gavin Newsom addressed the topic Thursday, saying while cities and counties can set up their own rules, he's satisfied with the state directive.
We put out guidelines a few weeks ago that we think are appropriate as baseline guidelines as it relates to construction in the state of California.
On Wednesday, several Bay Area counties announced most construction will be halted. San Diego hasn't made that call, but has implemented this list of safety measures construction companies must abide by. As for his workers, Cantor tells us they want to work to continue earning wages. And for any construction worker who feels unsafe,
talk to their boss and stand up for their rights.
And even though construction is allowed by law, Greg Cantor says he is prepared to shut everything down depending on just how bad this pandemic gets. Back to you.
Thanks, Shannon. When we come back, how the stay-at-home order is affecting our finances. And if you feel the need for speed, well, you're going to have to wait a few months longer.
Blue skies and sunshine as we go into this early evening, but here come those coastal low clouds that are going to roll in for tonight. We'll take a look at your complete forecast coming up.
Some new financial relief for small business owners here in California. I'm Marcella Lee, and I'll have details of Governor Gavin Newsom's announcement today. Next.